Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of The Context. We have an awesome show for you all today, and I am happy to be joined once again by my co founder, Darren. Darren, how are you,
Hello?
my friend?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, let's get into it, everyone. So, if you have not heard already, the MCP Dev Summit for Europe is a go. We are working very hard with the steering committee and with lots and lots of other people around Europe and here in the US to make this event as awesome as our San Francisco event was. And the so far it looks like it's going to be great. We've got, I think, already 20 talks have been submitted. So if you're thinking about presenting, you're working on something amazing, please submit now so we can get you on the agenda. We've got room for about, I think, 18 sessions. So it should be a good day in addition to a few keynotes. So please grab a spot. We're also limited on seats. So if you want to attend, definitely grab it. San Francisco sold out pretty fast. So I have a feeling London will sell out quickly as well. There are so many people interested in MCP right now. So please jump in and get all the information you can about it.
I want to say I actually, Shannon, I officially committed that I'm going to go. Like, I don't like traveling and I don't like going to conferences, but the last one was so good. I'm willing to to fly.
Really? Well, aren't
Yeah.
we lucky? Aren't we
I know.
lucky?
I know this is
Great
what everyone was
by
concerned
your
about, whether or not I
by
was
your
going to go.
presence.
But so
Those of you who are holding your breaths can
yeah,
now
I know.
safely
But
register.
I will be. I know I'm that important.
Exactly. As long as you know. All right. If you haven't been following the context the last few weeks, we have had some amazing talks. Last week, we had an incredible discussion with the team that's working on the extensions to Claude Desktop and really how they're approaching that. I highly recommend watching that. But just across the board, man, it's been fantastic. This MCP ecosystem is developing quick. We're seeing some great companies. If you would like to come and talk, we are booked out for a few weeks, but if you've built something amazing, send us an email, submit a talk, send us a note. You should be able to find us on socials, on LinkedIn, whatever. Ring the bell. We would love to get you on. We've done special episodes that we sneak in because something is so cool. So if you think something you're doing is so amazing that everyone working on MCP needs to know about it, please do not hesitate to reach out. All right, so we have a great set of talks coming up. Today, we're going to be talking about really kind of bringing MCP to the enterprise. Paresh has a really great talk that I think you're going to love about what their company, Natoma Labs, is working on. And then Chetan is going to give us a discussion about how to monetize the MCPs you're building, how to get paid for your awesome work. After that, we're going to have a really, one I'm super excited about, a real deep dive on elicitation next week and really how to engage with users through elicitation development. So as you're building your MCPs, how to go, think about them as more conversational. And then we're going to have the Apollo GraphQL's head of DevRel come and talk about kind of GraphQL with MCP. So lots of good talks, lots of talks coming. Just keep us bookmarked for your Thursday. And hopefully we'll have some more of you submitting talks to talk. All right. So if you're not familiar, we try to move pretty fast here. Our talks are usually 20 minutes or less. We try to keep them quick. If you have questions, we see them if you're on X, I think, and you put them in. We definitely see them on YouTube. We definitely see them on LinkedIn. So send your questions in. We will ask them at the end of the talks. And with that, let's get started. This should be fun. So Paresh, welcome. You're joining us today all the way from I know you're here in the Bay Area normally, but you're actually in India today, right?
That is right. I'm in India and it's 10:30 in the night, but I am super excited to be here.
Well, why don't we switch things over and give you the floor?
No, absolutely. Thanks, Shannon. By the way, been following this the eighth episode. The last seven have been awesome. So I'm gonna try to meet up to those standards, but wanted to share what we are doing here, right? And I wanted to today more talk about like how do we go from demos to production, right? It's not, we'll talk about what Natoma is doing, but I wanted to start off by sharing what we have heard. We've been talking to enterprises about MCP and like the weather demos, we've all done the weather demos. They're awesome, but what are the practical use cases? How do you really, what does it take to go from that weather demo to an actual enterprise production, right? So with that, of course, we all know the MCP momentum. It's been unreal. It is really unlocking some ROI on Gen AI side. Just look at the growth. I mean, I saw this on Google Analytics, and this was like, oh wow, it's quite interesting. But this, you still have that chasm from demo to pro. What is that chasm? What we've heard repeatedly from enterprises, right? Now, the step one is like, oh, people are super excited because of that momentum. Our developers are like hosting local MCP servers, and everybody is using vibe coding these days, right? And we already know everyone loves Cursor. Everybody loves. We already know what happened with Windsurf and that saga and Augment. You take your pick. Everybody loves that, but developers are wicked smart. They don't stop there. They're like, oh, there's this MCP server, and let me download it, connect it to variety of different enterprise tools. So customers like enterprises, IT teams, security teams are kind of worried because we've all heard about the newer vulnerabilities. There was an awesome talk on the MCP vulnerabilities around tool hijacking and the tool poisoning, rug pull attacks. I'm not going to go cover that, but enterprises are aware of it and they're super worried. And the other biggest one, as you can imagine, is the authentication and authorization side, right? Not only just security from like new vulnerabilities that are coming in, but like, hey, if I connect this to my Claude, how do you ensure that what Paresh is actually accessing, does he really have that access on the third-party systems and stuff like that? And the third one is really around ease of use and scaling this thing, right? Developers love MCPs. We've been working and building those MCP servers. I have it running on my laptop as well. But think about like Gen AI really unlocks for all business units in an enterprise. So, like a marketing person or a salesperson, or you may think like an HR person, and they might want to connect to their CRM and Salesforce and HubSpot and Marketo and Adobe and what have you, right? That's they are not technical. They're not going to go set up a Docker container and set up a local MCP server. So that ease of use is very critical. And the last and the biggest one is this is coming is like the observability and governance. You have all these MCP servers. Now you're connecting to your enterprise data. Who's making what calls? How are you doing it? What is the governance around it? Regulators are always a step behind, but that piece regulators will catch up and this will become like a massive problem, and security teams, IT teams are very well aware of it, and they are gonna be worried about that traceability, auditability, the whole gamut around. So what does an enterprise grade really mean, right? If you think about it, I mean, reliability, scalability, very obvious ones, right? It might not seem obvious when you're thinking of it, but what if you are like bringing in Gen AI to have like improve your enterprise productivity, and the server goes down, and now you're not able to connect your Claude to Salesforce, for example. Authentication, authorization, fine-grained controls, making sure that it's like, hey, I can't go see my CEO's salary, right? So that authorization layer is very critical. Policy-based controls, operational controls you need, right? Snowflakes, I mean, you have all these data warehousing tools. You need to have controls, filters around what kind of data is being accessed. I already mentioned the traceability, auditability, and security and compliance. Very, very critical. This is where Natoma Agent Access comes, right? We are that fabric we've built. We are like a hosted MCP servers. We make it super easy to use for customers, have that flexible deployment model, and provide that guardrails of how that security guardrails, authentication guardrails, authorization guardrails. And because we kind of are that fabric of hosted MCP servers sitting in front of all your enterprise data, we make sure that we are meeting all the standards, right? Like, so all the MCP servers you have, it actually meets the latest MCP spec that came out in May. Make sure that you're meeting those authentication, authorization, OAuth connections, manage all of that. Of course, we are a registry. It's part of the, it's mirroring the official MCP registry. But because we want to really focus on ease of use, we end up hosting. So people don't need to worry about running those Docker containers or running that locally on their endpoints. But also in terms of like proxy, right? Like think like likes of Atlassian or Asana, as ISVs start hosting their MCP servers, we can go connect. But the biggest one is think about it from functional and access policy controls, right? Making sure that data loss protections, making sure that policy engine, making sure that auditability, traceability that I was talking about. Now, think about a time when these regulators do catch up, having like a Natoma agent access in place ensures that enterprises can really go jump in and start doing that. Very quick, again, flexible deployment model. As I said, deployment is not the key, but from that ease of use perspective, we start hosting it so people don't have to worry about it. We also will start supporting the desktop extensions. I'm sure all of you guys are well aware of that because we have those lightweight endpoint agent that can run on users, developers, desktop, and that makes it very easy for you to go and configure those JSON files and stuff. And being like an enterprise ready tool, we ensure as we are uncovering different use cases beyond uh, just the IDE, really uncovering GenAI use cases at enterprises. We're building custom MCP servers for on-prem applications as well, and having that capability to have like a chat GPT enterprise able to connect to an on-prem application. Reliability and scale, I already hit on that. Absolutely critical if you want to improve your productivity. This layer cannot go down, and having that 5 nines availability is absolute paramount. And with that, you need scaling and hibernation. And us all being like developers, Terraform base is absolutely critical. ISC becomes absolutely critical. The cops only goes so far. We need those automation capabilities as well. And security, right? I mean that whole thing about security, governance, discovering those local MCP servers, having those fine-grained authorization, not only just like using OAuth for MCP client to server, but also making sure we have the OAuth coming in from downstream systems and getting the OAuth tokens from the third-party applications and things like that. API rate limiting, policy enforcement, access policy enforcement, and then having that whole capability and monitoring aspects as well, right? Like that audit and compliance. Instead of I'm done enough of talking and sharing slides. I actually want to show you a demo. I know we have very short window here, so would love to show you a demo, and I'm going to show you a demo. But I just wanted to, oops, I just see a typo here. There is a free trial. The registration code is Natoma-free trial. SETIAL, not TIAL. It will be trial, and then we want to talk more. Want to see a deeper demo? Have to do a deeper demo as well. But let's go and I'm not going. I promise you, and I promised Shannon yesterday, I will not show a weather demo. I will actually show a real, actual, active demo, right? Uh, an enterprise ready demo. So let's talk about first thing first is like discovery of shadow MCP servers, right? This becomes absolutely critical. So if you have local MCP enterprises connecting to local MCP servers, we can discover the platform. By the way, this is all live. As you can see, it's not Figma. We can discover those local MCP servers. So alerting those IT teams and making sure that, hey, you want to use MongoDB? Awesome. let's make sure you are using the right one, you have the right guardrails, and you're not just using random, right? Traceability, auditability, as I was mentioning, becomes absolutely critical as well. I'll come back to it. But the first thing first is what kind of MCP servers you have, right? Of course, we have that registry. You can go and search any of those. You can start adding any of these things as well. Let's say I want to add for the marketing use case around data for SEO. You can do a managed connection, do a personal connection, get the OAuth token, get the end users letting do that. Of course, you can enable and disable any of the tools uh, you may or may not want as an IT admin to have all of those tools enabled. You may want to control like, hey, don't allow like bulk backlinks, or don't allow like, you get the idea, bulk ranks. So control what tools are available. You can do, you come in, enter the right credentials. You can provide that visibility, right? You don't want these MCP servers available to everybody in your enterprise. You can assign it to certain folks. And like, hey, the dev team, they only get for like GitHub and Linear and Atlassian and whatever. If you have like data for SEO or Salesforce, the sales guys kind of, or the marketing team kinda gets it. I'll skip for that for now, but that gives you an idea. End user, they see these MCP servers that are available to them. They can go and add these MCP servers, uh, like, go add them. If they are managed ones, if they are personal ones, they can add those credentials. And then, of course, there is no MCP demo without a Claude, right? Let's say I pull up Claude. I have this Claude connected to my Okta, and I've connected it to my Slack. Again, think like actual real use case. Now, from an IT operation perspective, an IT team might want to find out when a certain person has actually rotated their password in Okta, Okta being like an identity IDP. So let's say, hey, find out when Ted Lasso rotated the password, and if it's more than a year, go notify it in. Okay, you get the idea. It's going to do the tool calls. It's going to figure out when it is. I don't need to talk about all of Claude's awesomeness, but you get the idea that you can connect to multiple tools, but with the right guardrails. And as you're doing that, all of these tool calls, activities that are being happening will be captured in the activity logs. And just from an enterprise perspective, they will be able to go and pump it to their SIM tools. With that, my 20 minutes are up, is what I've been told. So I'm going to pause and stop sharing. Shannon, yes, sir.
Paresh, that
What
was really
questions do we
great.
have? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that and walking us through it. I certainly have a couple questions. So tell me a little bit about the platform. Is this something that you guys just recently launched? Has it been available for a while? What's been the journey to build this for you guys as a team?
The journey started Christmas of 2025 for or 2024 for all of us, right? When MCP, the company, taking a step back, the company Natoma started in January 2024. We were doing that shadow AI discovery and wanted to do that AI identity aspects of it, and like, hey, what does that AI identity look like? The team actually comes, some ex Okta team kind of comes Okta. No wonder there was an Okta demo. Uh, but that's where the journey started, and all of our entire Christmas time was spent going deep into MCP, and we're like, hey, what is this? How can it really help? And we're like, oh, this really can unlock uh, real Gen AI use cases. But as it can unlock real Gen AI use cases, as we were thinking of like AI agent identity and like having these AI agent identity and becoming like, sort of, lack of a better term, like an IDP for an AI agent, this becomes like, okay, MCP is the right protocol to help you integrate and provide the right guardrails. And since then, the product, to answer your question on when the product, where the product is, product, as I said, it's live. We launched it end of March. We already have customers using this product. A lot of customers are in that same IDE use case, as we all know, biggest Gen AI use cases. So a lot of engineering teams, they are using it, making it super simple. Uh, think like larger organizations. Not every developer is wants to do these local MCP servers, having this thing makes it so much easier. We're starting to unlock a lot of other IT use cases, just as I showed, like Slack or like, Okta or uh, like, things like Contra ID and like all of those use cases around IT operations, IT tickets, like connecting into Dropbox, and how do we reduce all of. So we're learning like generally, like we all know, the MCP is unreal and it can really, really unlock the power of Gen AI. That is where we are kind of helping them, like, hey, go connect to your Okta and then connect to SRP and go SAP, sorry, operational efficiencies around those things, all the manual tasks.
So,
So those two big buckets.
so I'm curious, as you're bringing customers and users in, is like, are you still seeing? Because I have kind of this question about MCP in general. Is like, are you seeing primarily you're interacting with, like, your users are primarily engineering developers? Like, because I just have this wonder of like MCP is obviously a very useful technology, but like is it going to escape out of developers, or developers going to be taking MCP and packaging it up into another solution that really hits more of the kind of the consumer non-techie crowd?
I would say it will eventually get there. We were literally just having that discussion. It kind of fits in those three buckets. Majority of the early adopters are always engineers, right?
Yeah,
And
of
that
course.
quite obvious. And they're like, hey, oh, this is awesome. Let's do it. Let's make it easy for all my team. And I have that. The second bucket that where we're seeing a lot of good use cases is these IT operational service now tickets they have, and they are manually going into Dropbox or going into I need to go clean up something here. How do we help you, like going into their other tools, helping them security operations, not only IT operations, even the SOC teams, helping them automate and leverage Gen AI into real production use cases. And the third and the biggest one, which remains really untapped in my opinion, is these think about the other non-technical business users, your marketing teams. They want to run campaigns. They have certain things into your HubSpot, and they'll have certain other things in your Marketo, and they ran some last campaign, want to see that data. Imagine connecting all of these things instead of like going and manually doing. So that piece remains massively untapped. Now, can you even imagine like a marketing person actually setting up an MCP server? Absolutely not, right?
Oh yeah, of course,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So
Hey, now,
this is
come
where
on.
we kind
There's
of
pretty smart
help them
marketing
unlock.
people out there. Let's not disparage our
Fair enough.
judgment.
Fair enough.
Oh
Okay,
no,
I'm not
we're
gonna,
really
yeah,
stupid.
no,
no, I'm not saying that, but like
I mean, we
they
haven't made it
want to.
easy. The truth is, like, we just haven't made it easy. The
Yeah.
reality is
Yeah.
seeing it show up in, I think that the general purpose business user is still looking for tools that look more like ChatGPT, right? They want something, and then they want to click the tools button, and then from the tools button, they want to be able to see. Honestly, I don't think they even want to hear MCP ever. They just want to hear about apps, extensions, data, whatever. That's what they want. Okay, so what app? What functionality maybe within an app? Like maybe an app is big enough that it spans multiple different functional capabilities. But yeah, but I do think
Not
that
everyone,
that is
100%.
where we unlock the real adoption of MCPs.
Yeah, because I'm really curious about this model of like Claude Desktop. They're doing this really well, where the user can go in and add these connectors. I don't know if they call it connect, but so they're adding those in, and that seems like a really interesting use case. But the reality at the moment, it's so new, it's not exactly proven yet that like this is unlocking amazing powers. So it's like, so I'm just kind of curious to see how it's really going to pan out. Where it's like, obviously, like MCP has been this amazing thing within like the development community, and I think it's unlocked a lot of capabilities on how to more easily integrate models and tools and things. But as soon as it starts getting to the end, like the more consumer type person, it's like, I'm just curious to see how it's pan out. Like, there's obviously value here. Like, just what is it going to look at the end of the day? So yeah, I'm just kind of excited to see as this develops. Anthropic's doing an amazing job of packaging it up nicely for people, so that you demo it on desktop. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Paresh,
No,
I don't want you to keep
100% agree.
moving. Yeah, go
Yeah, and
ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw a note from somebody in YouTube channel, like security privacy also becomes like a big factor, right? And having these guardrails, it becomes really, really important. And having that fabric from the beginning is awesome. But yeah, I'll stick to my time and respect. You
Well,
need to move on,
congratulations,
right?
Paresh. It looks really cool, and congrats on the company. It sounds like you guys are on a really smart path. So, thank you so much for joining us. All right, our next presenter is Chetan. Chetan is the founder at MonetizedMCP and Fluora AI, and he's joining us from here in the Bay Area. Chetan, excited to have you here today. Thanks, man.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, let me get your slides up. And
All right.
the floor is yours.
All right, fantastic. So I'm going to be speaking today, beginning to speak about monetized MCP. So this is a diagram that many of us recognize from the MCP sort of webpage. And essentially, MCP was envisioned to essentially be a data connector layer between essentially an LLM and data sources, whether it be local on your machine or remotely on the internet. And so what sort of started off as this sort of kind of very simplistic type of technology has really erupted into a massive sort of movement, as we all know. And I really see that MCP is turning almost into like the HTTP for AI. And so, and with that sort of larger vision, there's all these new things that folks are talking about, things that weren't originally planned for that are important to fill in if MCP can really sort of fill this gap of being this universal protocol in the AI space. And one area where we're seeing a really big gap is around monetization. So MCP didn't originally have a monetization sort of framework built in. So right now, if you want to monetize an MCP server, essentially a human has to go open an account, put the credit card in, get an API key, and plug that in. And we believe that that's really a very manual process, and it's important to find a way for this to be a fully automated process. So if if a user wants to use a resource, via an agent, that agent can essentially transact autonomously. And we think that really would allow for a lot of autonomous coordination on the internet between AIs. And so, so that was our impetus: is really, could we create a model that will allow for this in a way that didn't require any change to the core protocol. And so what we came up with was MonetizedMCP, which is essentially a peer-to-peer sort of system. And essentially, MonetizedMCP are a set of libraries that an MCP server can import in order to receive programmatic payments. And so the way it works is that on your local or cloud machine, you essentially have an MCP host, and you have a digital wallet. This digital wallet can be crypto or fiat. And that digital wallet can send payments to the MonetizedMCP server, which can now receive those payments, verify those payments, settle those payments, and then respond with goods or services. And so we have this initial version has been built using USDC stablecoins, and we're able to do that using X402, which is a new payment protocol released by Coinbase. And I know a lot of folks have a lot of mixed impressions with crypto, and I actually am with you. I'm in the same camp. I think there's been a lot of grift and a lot of crap, but there also is some really great pieces in that from the crypto world. And I believe that the stablecoin sort of element is a really great element that we're obviously seeing being recognized via regulation. There's been a lot of great movements in that space. And the reason is that they offer a lot of great utility. And so, and it's really important to note that by using crypto, there's essentially no payment credentials ever leaving your machine. A lot more to speak about that, but I'll just leave it at that and move forward. So the second piece is with MonetizedMCP, we have 3 standardized tools that each MonetizedMCP server implements. The first is price listing, the second is payment methods, and the third is make purchase. And these are 3 tools in addition to any other tools implemented by the MCP server. So the way it works is that the MCP host queries the price listing tool from the server, essentially saying, what are you selling? The server responds with a list of services and prices, like a menu. And the host will then call payment methods to get the server's wallet info. And then it'll call make purchase. It'll say, hey, I want item X, and here's my payment. The server would then settle that payment and then execute the requested service. And so, so this is kind of very simple back and forth that allows the host to essentially pay for a service. And then essentially we have Fluora, which is a marketplace of these monetized MCP servers. And so I will now walk you through a short demo to show it to you in action. So we have an MCP server, a Fluora MCP server plugged into Claude, and the same, obviously can plug into Cursor or plug into LangChain or any place which accepts MCP servers. And so we're going to begin by saying, search the Fluora registry for MCP servers. So it's going to use the Fluora MCP server and connect with the Fluora registry. And it says that it has 2 MCP servers. The first is Cambrian. This is the data provider that recently onboarded one of the folks in our private beta. The second one, which I'm going to demo for you today, is called PDF Shift. This is a service that we wrapped into an MCP server, and it basically takes a website and converts it into a PDF for a fee. And so the website we're going to convert today is our splash page, which is fluora.ai. And we're going to be using real money to do this transaction. So we're going to be using USDC, and the balance of my USDC wallet is $11.727. So now if we come back to Claude, over here, and say, great. So we're going to say, convert the website fluora.ai into a PDF using PDF Shift. Great. And so the transaction cost is 0.1 USDC, and it's going to be calling the make purchase tool. So normally it makes a few tool calls, as I just demonstrated earlier, but it has some context from previous transactions, so it knows exactly which one to call. So here we find that if we kind of look at what's actually being sent, we see that it calls the make purchase tool. It attaches the payment with the wallet address, and then it attaches the website URL, fluora.ai, as a parameter. And we see that it was completed successfully. We can click here to open the link. And indeed, this is correct. And we can come back to our wallet. The balance was 11.727. We're going to look at our wallet balance again. It's 11.627. So it did it correctly. It spent 0.1 USDC to get this website converted. So now if we go back to the slides. Oops. Okay, so just to review, essentially we have MonetizedMCP, and that turns any MCP server, or allows any MCP server to now receive programmatic payments. Then you have Fluora, which is a registry of these MonetizedMCP servers. Think of us as like a Google or an eBay for MonetizedMCP servers. And then we have an AI agent that can query this registry to connect and transact with the server. And this could be LangChain, could be Claude, whatever, or Cursor, whatever it is. And so you might be thinking, well, where are you using this? Where's the use case? And our focus right now is with workplace automation. And so we're essentially building a Slack widget that allows SMBs to be able to automate workflows. So for instance, an SMB could say, update my website with customer feedback from my customer feedback, and then market it. So in that case, they would make that request to the Slack widget. That Slack widget would then look into a particular, let's say, customer feedback folder in Notion, get all the information, make the updates to the website via WordPress, and then come to Fluora to find a marketing service that could then market that website. And it could, basically get bids from different MCP servers. And so now you as a user could review all the bids, could look at the reputations of each service and look at the pricing, and then you could you could select one and then kick off the marketing campaign. So now what used to take many steps and lots of time can now be streamlined and automated within a few minutes. And we think that this is really, really exciting. And so, we believe that, focusing on SMBs opens the door for a lot of different types of use cases. You can imagine a lot of different types of workflows that can be automated. So we're currently in private beta. And if you're building an MCP server that could be a great addition to this marketplace, we would love to have you as part of the private beta. So please send me an email. My email will be on the last slide. And we're also going to be launching in a soft launch in August, so just in a few weeks. So would love to hear from you if that could be you. Lastly, we're also going to be co-sponsoring a hackathon with Coinbase. That'll be August 9th and 10th in New York City. And it's going to be called Code NYC. And they're specifically looking for product builders. And there'll be $35,000 in prizes. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you are also building something that could be a great addition to this marketplace, something that's at the intersection of AI and commerce, please apply. And please also let me know, and I can put in a good word for you with the organizers. And lastly, if you're interested in checking, actually, if you want to check out MonetizedMCP, this is an open source repo, and it is live now. So you can go check it out. You can download the code. You can start playing with it. Would love to hear your thoughts and of course your contributions. We want to really incorporate we want this to be an industry standards as much as possible and incorporate different payment rails. We want it to incorporate other elements that of course work across the stack and support other people's projects. And that's it. My email is contact@fluora.ai. That's FLUORA. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Chetan. That was really cool.
That was a lot. That was a lot to take in. I don't think I fully understand everything, but I got the gist of it. I had one question, and it's kind of someone in the community had kind of brought this up. Is with the model kind of orchestrating the payment, that brings in a bunch of security questions, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? You know, prompt injection or all these different type of things. So what are the considerations there you have to take in terms of security?
Yeah, so we're exploring all the different elements of that right now. And so one thing that we're looking at is really having a different module. So the LLM doesn't actually kick off the payment, but really puts the payment request in a queue, which then you would have to approve. And so we want to really put humans in the mix here and to make sure that they're really approving everything that actually when a payment is involved. And we hope that that's an initial sort of layer to create some security, but we are of course looking into the other elements as well involved in payments.
And does elicitations anywhere possibly maybe fit into that or that's not? Yeah.
Potentially, we're also looking into that as well. So that's a recent development in MCP. So we're in process right now with all these questions.
That's cool.
Chetan, I'm really curious what you see as kind of your magic wand, right? You can, a year from now, you've got a rich set of, MCPs that are accepting payments in your registry. What are some things that you think would be, top performers, like things that you think will be very popular?
Yeah, so we're excited by the SMB use case. So right now we see that a lot of the big players like ChatGPT and Perplexity are going after consumer, and we think that SMB is a very different workflow because you want to incorporate and link to all of your different SaaS tools like your Notion and your GitHub and all these different elements. And so to really figure out that user experience is going to be quite different. And so I really think that there's a lot of things you could do with things like marketing websites, building websites. A lot of things right now that require a human to click on a website, we think we can automate with AIs. And I think there is an enormous amount of things that can be done, everything from hiring freelancers to launching offsites to internal operations for your company, for building and designing products to launching products. All of these things can essentially be agentic workflows that could be part of our ecosystem.
Can you imagine, right now, one of the interesting challenges, I think, as just the breadth of model capability expands and just what models can do, as models get sort of paired with MCP servers and then a set of sort of agentic capabilities, you can imagine sort of an MCP server that you could sort of send a prompt to and say hey, I need a 30-second video about this, developed, created, kind of curated with me. I don't even have an account. I don't really want to have an account with your thing. I just sort of saw your MCP server. You've got some pricing in there. I don't want to. I want to be able to transactionally leverage your capabilities. Could you imagine something like that? Because that was my first thought. Was man, there's so many services, and a lot of times it's I have to give them everything to even try what their capabilities are. But I would say as a marketer, if I could get something that would do some interesting SEO optimization on my website, right? Okay, I've got this really nice capability. I've built it out. I don't need to sign up for your website. I don't need to go to your website. I would just like to engage with you directly from from my IDE, again, as a marketer, right from Slack, maybe even. So I think there's a lot of, I think those would be some ones that I would think could jump out really high. It's very, kind of tactical, transactional, like your PDF example, but maybe tied into the models. So they're able to actually generate something relatively unique and maybe differentiate themselves from, I don't know, Sora or whatever else may be out there.
Totally, yeah. So we want to really kind of demonstrate how this is working with Slack, and around a lot of these use cases you mentioned, I think are great fits. And we think micro SaaS is, I don't think that's a term. I don't know if it's a widely used term, but there's all these like little things that could be of value, like developing a 30-second, video or whatever it is. And I think there'd be a whole ecosystem of these types of products. And which, as you said, user doesn't need to go to the website. All they need is this thing. And can the AIs kind of work to make that happen in a really seamless way?
Your microtransactions for micro SaaS functionality is, I can see in the marketing universe an enormous amount of use cases for this. I just, let's just say you've built a really good blogging agent, right? Like something that that comes back and really writes like a human. And, I should be paying you for that, right? You've maybe done a ton of tweaking to the model. You've done a ton of tweaking to the way, your system prompts. You kind of create this cool agent. And it's like, hey, every article is like $7, right? Compared to what I'm paying for someone else, can I get something from ChatGPT that's better? Maybe not. And so now I'm willing to pay you this $5, $7, $9 fee to kind of generate something amazing for me. Even if it was, again, there might even be transactional man in the middle type longer function, capabilities where I'm making a micropayment to get something back, but it's in an ecosystem where those micropayments are really easy to track. They're easy to sort of, kind of do it low risk. Even you can even imagine a scenario where it's like, some of this is kept in escrow, or like there's an escrow functionality where I want something that's a little bit longer function from a more complex AI assistant. I escrow the count, someone holds that while I wait for confirmation that the delivery has been made, and now that gets released. I think there's I really like this. I think it's really interesting. I like that you guys have approached building out the spec almost with your plugin, and so that people can add this to anything. Now I want to go build an SDK an MCP that actually does some cool shit for marketers, because as a marketer, as somebody who's not an engineer, there's a lot of transactional things. Can you imagine like, an MCP SDR, right? An MCP SDR where I'm paying, per meeting confirmed, right? Like, so I'm like, okay, I want you working on this thing, and now I want to pay you. And this could be like an individualized, MCP that I'm pulling in and just adding to my team. And now it's a Slack entity that I'm chatting with, and, I'm paying it, from a startup, like you said, from an SME, from a kind of a smaller size organization. I could scale up a few SDRs theoretically that were actually good, promising SDRs for 6 hours, right? Be like, I want to see what kind of impact this thing has and pay for it on an on-demand basis, instead of signing a 2-month commit, a year-long commitment or something like that with with how most people are trying to sell these things. So interesting, could be very disruptive.
I have a question, because I'm really fascinated with your approach, because I've been fooling around with some MCP stuff where I've kind of realized some of the value of an idea of kind of like an MCP interface. And that's kind of, it seems to be what you've done. It's like, here's a standard set of tools. You didn't have to enhance the MCP protocol because it has the building blocks, but here's an interface. So if you have this interface now, so I really like that. So in terms of kind of like standardizing this I'm kind of naive to the payment space and whatnot, but I did like randomly see a tweet of something about like Stripe doing something with MCPs. Are they taking like a completely different approach, or is there a path forward between like, kind of like what they're doing or you're doing or whatever, of like what this kind of thing could be standardized into? Yeah.
So here's the thing is that I think when you think about any sort of standard, you want it, what Stripe did was around Stripe's payment protocol.
Yeah, of course.
So you want any sort of thing that becomes a standard to be inclusive of everyone's payment protocols, not just Stripe, but everyone, crypto or Stripe or whoever it is. And so that's the first thing. And I felt like the second thing is that the way they designed it wasn't as extensible. So what they did is that you could price a tool. So every tool would have a separate price. Well, imagine if you're a pizza shop with 20 different types of pizzas, and each pizza can be ordered in 3 sizes. So now you need 60 different tools, which doesn't scale, right? So we think that it just wasn't as we thought it was a great first step, but we're trying to kind of think a little bit more deeply about different use cases, so that we can encompass a lot of different types of use cases with one standard.
Yeah.
I really see that what we're trying to do is include Stripe as well. But we'd love to have Stripe as a payment rail in MonetizedMCP.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and I'm always a big fan of kind of like, you don't define kind of like the standard first. It's like go implement, get something really kind of working, and then you kind of circle back. And a lot of times de facto standards come out, or we just kind of work on it. So that's interesting. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, Chetan, thanks so much for joining us today. And Paresh, thank you for being here as well. It was awesome having you both. We really appreciate the content and sharing so much of what you're doing. Everyone else, we'll be back again next week. And thank you all for joining us today.
Cool. Thank you all.